What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. And joining me today, Chris Fedor, cleveland.com, Cavs beat reporter, and Jimmy Watkins, cleveland.com, columnist. And we're talking about the seismic shift in the NBA today. No, we're not talking about Kawhi Leonard going back to Toronto, which was also huge, but LeBron James saying that he is not going to return to the Los Angeles Lakers for the 2026-2027 season, opening up his free agency even before the 6 p.m. opening began today. But we have to discuss the three teams that are in the running or are the front runners for LeBron James and all the other teams and the decisions that are going to be made because of LeBron James becoming a free agent. Sure, you have the Cleveland Cavaliers, the homecoming for a potential retirement tour, but you also have the team in Golden State that was able to thwart an entire run by the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James, and the potential for LeBron James to go to join with Stephen Curry and the Warriors, or another option potentially being a return to Miami and linking up with Giannis Antetokounmpo on the Heat. Chris, Jimmy, what was so significant, and why is this such a seismic move in the NBA with LeBron James saying that he is not going to return to LA for his next season?
Because it's LeBron. And even at 41 years old, he still moves the needle and he still can make things shift in the NBA. Think about the way that he played last year for the Los Angeles Lakers. He would have been all NBA had he qualified and played enough games to qualify. And then he leads the Lakers to a first-round playoff series win over the Houston Rockets, despite the fact that Austin Reeves was hobbled and Luka Doncic wasn't playing because of a hamstring injury. So if you're talking about it from the Cavs' perspective, positionally, what's the thing that they need the most? Stylistically, what's the thing that they need the most? Somebody that looks and plays like LeBron. All of that championship DNA, all of those intangibles, all of that basketball IQ. The guy can still play at a high level. And if you think about the Cavs and what it would look like with LeBron on the team, they would be much more formidable than if they didn't have LeBron. The other thing that is a big, big deal here with what LeBron announced through his agent Rich Paul is that LeBron has signaled that he's willing to take a below market deal. So that opens up the potential suitors, and that also allows some of these suitors to build an actual team around him, because you're not going to have to commit financially to LeBron what you used to have to commit to him. Before it was, you got to come up with $50-something million. That was the past. Now, all of a sudden, teams like the Cavs are in the mix, and the Golden State Warriors are in the mix, and maybe Miami is in the mix. And now, all of a sudden, you don't have to commit so much financially to LeBron that makes it very, very difficult from a team-building standpoint. So him signaling that, and also signaling that he wants to compete for a championship, and also signaling that happiness is the thing that is going to be the main driver of this decision, that just opens up the possibility that Cleveland is a real, honest destination for LeBron. Because if you talk about the basketball standpoint, you're talking about one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And if you're talking about the sentimental standpoint and the emotional ties to Cleveland, there isn't any other place that can bring it to the same level. Think about that. Like, this was a huge day for the Cavs, and it was a huge day for the NBA. And whoever gets LeBron is going to be a team that competes for a championship. Doesn't mean that they're going to get to the finals. It doesn't mean that you start booking your hotels or something like that. But he is the kind of guy in this free agent market. There is nobody else that is a better option for the Cavs or a variety of teams than LeBron is, still, to this day, at 41 years old.
Yeah, the bombshell is not LeBron's leaving the Lakers. The bombshell is LeBron's leaving the Lakers and he's affordable for the first time in his career. In a time where cap space is precious across the league, the idea that he could be had for something like the non-taxpayer mid-level exception is groundbreaking. Frankly, LeBron at the non-taxpayer mid-level, that might just be the best value on the market. Again, even at, soon to be 42 years old, he's still damn good, man.
It might turn into the best contract in the NBA.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I mean, obviously, no guarantees for anybody at 42 years old, but given, LeBron just played another super durable season and was the only Laker to make it through the entire playoff run. So we know that his body, it moves differently, and he invests in his body at a different level, right? So that's why it's such a big deal. That's why everything has to be reconsidered now, particularly if you're the Cavs. Wendy's been talking on TV all day about how do you get LeBron's attention? What roster moves can you do to make LeBron's attention? I think the Jaylen Brown talk is back on the table, because it's not just potentially Jaylen Brown, it's Jaylen Brown and LeBron. You have to think about that. I'm more willing to think about an Evan Mobley trade if it's Jaylen Brown and LeBron. First of all, I wrote a column saying they should trade Evan Mobley for Jaylen Brown last week anyways. I'm down for some Jaylen Brown, Evan Mobley trades. But if it brings you LeBron James on a $15 million contract, exclamation point. Now the question is, what does LeBron mean when he says he's prioritizing his happiness? That there's a lot there. Happiness could mean, hey, I really, really liked the basketball experience of playing with Steph Curry in the Olympics a couple of years ago, and Draymond Green has become a really good friend of mine. And I think that, us three I don't know. I don't know how much the AD thing is still on the table, but if we can bring my buddy AD over there as well, that could be LeBron chasing a new basketball peak. With those guys, yes, they're old, but they're all also, those are four of the smartest players in the league as well. What kind of stuff could they cook up with Steve Kerr? And could they, and in a world where the rest of the league is kind of scoffing, oh, well, look at these guys, look at the old men, get them out of here with their knee pads and their canes and all that sort of stuff. Who's gonna stop these guys? Father Time. Maybe that's their rebellion against the rest of the league. If you put us together and we stay healthy, that's not a team I'd like to see in the playoffs personally. That core right there. If LeBron means happiness as in fulfillment, it's a no freaking brainer. Bringing your story full circle in Cleveland would be one of the coolest endings to a career in NBA history. The last time LeBron was here, it ended really weird, and I wrote this column about how so many great players have had funky, weird ends to their career. Like MJ almost stuck the landing with the Utah shot, but then he got the itch and he came back and he had these two really weird seasons with the Wizards where he was still pretty good. He was still scoring 20 points a game, but kind of lost to history. It was a weird way to end your career. Kobe Bryant scored 60 on his way out. That's super cool. Mamba out, mic drop. The Lakers won 17 games that year. That is not, if you asked 30-year-old Kobe Bryant how he wanted to go out, that would be the last thing. That would be the last scenario that he described to you. Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon, all these guys. It's really hard to end your career on the right note. And LeBron coming to Cleveland, that's pretty darn close right there. And if they win a freaking championship, which is much more likely with LeBron in the fold than it is without, if the Cavs I would put them in the whatever your first tier of contenders is. If they got LeBron and then swung another sizable-ish move, they're right there with everybody else. I mean, that's it right there. That's literally the perfect ending. Only one guy in NBA history, Bill Russell, who had 20 rebounds in a Game 7 championship victory over the Lakers in a game that he played in and coached. We're constantly underrating how awesome Bill Russell's career was. He coached his last game and won a championship while getting 20 rebounds. That's the only guy that I could find who's ever really ended it on the right note. And then you add in the emotional tentacles to it. I don't see how that's not the happiest move on the table, but I don't know what LeBron's definition of happy is. We also have to consider that his family, is his family going to move out after being in LA for 8 years, they can move back to Ohio? Would he actually stay in Ohio for a little bit? Does it make sense for his family to make a cross-country move? Would it just be easier for him to hop a private jet to go to San Fran, which is, I don't know, less than an hour by plane? That's the thing. I don't know what he means by happy, and that's probably going to determine this.
Yeah, nobody does at this point. That's up for LeBron to decide, because that definition varies from person to person, right? My definition of happiness is not yours, Jimmy, and my definition of happiness is not yours, Ethan. The thing that I wonder, you brought up the fairy tale ending. How does the ending play out if it's not a championship? How does the ending play out if the Cavs underachieve and they are once again a disappointment?
That's a lot to chew on. I would say like they're less likely to be a disappointment if LeBron's around, right? But it's a fair question.
It raises a question of how much pressure does he want to deal with in what could be his final season? Is this more about a farewell tour or the pressure and the expectation of winning a championship? Because look, if he comes back to Cleveland, the thing that he has is a championship that can't be duplicated already in Cleveland. He delivered that to Cleveland. That's going to be the lasting memory of LeBron in Cleveland. If he comes back to Cleveland for one more year of farewell tour, and it doesn't end the way that anybody wants, is that then going to turn into the lasting memory? It's something to consider, at least. If he goes to Golden State, I think a lot of people are going to be laughing at the basketball situation there and saying, Golden State, not Golden State. See what I did there? And I don't think there's going to be as much pressure to win a championship. I don't think there's going to be as much expectation there. And look, LeBron has never run from expectation. He has never run from pressure. He's always welcomed that. But does he want his farewell tour to be overcome with that? Or does he want it more to be like a fun, loose, joyful farewell tour? That's something else that we don't know about this whole situation. The other thing that I would say is that, when it comes to LeBron, just from like a stylistic fit standpoint, he can fit anywhere. It can be Golden State. It can be New York. It could be Miami. It could be Cleveland. Like, that dude figures it out. Was he supposed to be the third option in LA and be able to figure that out, given what he's been throughout the course of his career? No, but he figured it out because he's a basketball savant. So the one thing that you don't have to worry about with LeBron is, hey, how does he fit alongside Jared Allen, Evan Mobley? How does he fit alongside James Harden, Donovan Mitchell? Is it the ideal fit? Dude will figure it out. Dude always figures it out. That's the beauty of him. He is so versatile. He can play a multitude of positions. He can fill a variety of roles. And he can thrive in all of those situations. I don't think you could come up with a roster or a situation where I would look at it and say LeBron can't thrive in that situation because he's just that damn good. So that's something else to consider. Like, from a basketball standpoint, there are going to be places that are appealing to him. I think Golden State's appealing to him from a basketball standpoint. I think Cleveland's going to be appealing to him from a basketball standpoint. I think Miami would be appealing to him from a basketball standpoint. And I don't know that one of those stands out above the rest. None of those teams are the reigning NBA champions. I don't think any of those teams are going into this year as the clear-cut favorite to advance to the NBA Finals. So the basketball situations of all the reported places that LeBron will probably consider, I don't know that there's one that stands out as this is the clear-cut best. But from a sentimental and an emotional perspective, it does feel like there is one that stands out above the rest. And that's Cleveland, because nobody is going to embrace LeBron the same kind of way. Nobody's going to love LeBron the same kind of way. And nobody is going to treat his final season with the way, the love, the passion, the dedication, the commitment to what his final season should always be about and how he should be treated in his final season.
Maybe that changes the tenor of the playoff run. Maybe it's a less angsty Cavs crowd. Maybe it's just a more appreciative Cavs crowd. The other thing is here. I mean, are we sure next season is his last season?
No, definitely not.
I don't know, man. Another thing I would just float out there, we're going to talk a lot about LeBron over the next week, I'm sure. But like a thought I had today as the Warriors steam was picking up a little bit, I think he has to know what that would do to the Cleveland fan base.
Doesn't care.
Maybe he doesn't care, but maybe he also doesn't want to end his career on that note.
Yeah, so like, I don't want to speak to LeBron, but the only thing that you can do at this point is kind of read between the lines and go based on history. The one thing that LeBron has not allowed throughout the course of his career is public perception dictating what he wants to do with his career. Was it popular to leave Cleveland in 2010, especially the way that he did? Hell no. You kidding me? He became a villain in Miami. For the first time in his life, he became a villain. And it was hard for him to deal with that. And he obviously got fans back on his side. But initially, that wasn't popular. He was hated because of that. It was very, very difficult. It was a decision that was criticized by a bunch of different people. And then all of a sudden, he leaves Cleveland to go to Los Angeles, leaves Cleveland a second time to go to Los Angeles. That wasn't popular. There were a lot of people that were saying, come on, man. Like, that's Kobe's franchise. That's Magic's franchise. That's all these other people's franchise. What are you going to do in Los Angeles? Are you kidding me? Like, public perception was, you can't go to Los Angeles. It's ridiculous for you to go Los Angeles. You're not going to win another championship. You're not going to have an opportunity to compete for a championship. You're not going to be embraced and loved by that fan base the way that you were in Cleveland and the way that you were in Miami. So, no, it wouldn't be the most popular thing to have LeBron join his one-time rival in Golden State, the team that he tortured and tormented, wearing the Ultimate Warrior shirt coming off the plane and celebrating the championship, all the other things that he did to Steph Curry and Draymond Green and whatnot. But like I said, LeBron has just never allowed public perception or what people feel about his decision to impact what makes him happy and what he thinks is best for his career. This is his journey. This is his story. And he's going to make the decision that he thinks is best. Now, does that mean that he's definitely going to Golden State? No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying he is not, based on everything that I know about LeBron, he is not going to dismiss the possibility of joining the Warriors because that wouldn't play well.
It's been an interesting conversation already because we've talked about the emotional aspect, the basketball aspect, but it also feels like to me, based on all the reporting that's being done, is that LeBron James understands that he needs to be paired with significant players that can help elevate everyone's game around him, whether that's being Stephen Curry in Golden State, also potentially pairing him in a trade with Anthony Davis to reunite in Golden State as well. That has been floated around in the ether of the interwebs. But also, when it comes to potentially joining the Cleveland Cavaliers, Jaylen Brown has also been paired with LeBron James in this kind of conversation to help alleviate some of the pressures that would still be had on a Cleveland Cavaliers team, because there's an understanding of LeBron James is still LeBron James. He still is going to impact winning, help elevate the team to a different level, but he is no longer a 1A caliber player as well. And having a potential run to a championship is the highlight or best way to end a career if possible. So, when we look at the potential roster constructions of these two situations, particularly knowing that at this current moment, or as it was being reported today, Golden State and Cleveland are the two front runners, but obviously LeBron James kind of saying, or LeBron James through Rich Paul saying that he's going to be willing to take less money to be most happy, that also opens up for other teams. Where do you think he has the best chance to win? And do you think that Golden State and Cleveland are the two options?
I don't think we can dismiss Miami here. Miami's got Giannis, they've got Bam, got Andrew Wiggins coming back, and it's a really, really smart organization that is going to do smart things with the roster. And we don't know what the roster is going to look like, but one of their first moves in free agency was adding Tim Hardaway Jr. That's brilliant. Given the way that their roster is currently constructed, that's the type of player that they need. So you plop LeBron in alongside Bam, that's intriguing for sure. But I think it's the Cavs. I do. It's a stylistic fit, I believe. It's a positional fit. I think him and Donovan Mitchell would be good together. I think Donovan wouldn't have to carry as much of a burden, but LeBron wouldn't have to carry as much of a burden either. Same thing when it comes to James Harden. I think it would be mutually beneficial. I think it would be very similar to the setup that LeBron had in Miami with the Heatles. Chris Bosh takes a little bit of a lesser role, and that's probably best for him. Dwayne Wade, at the stage of his career that he was in, took a little less of a role, and that was good for him. And LeBron was taught how to be a champion, and that was good for him. So, LeBron can teach these guys how to be champions. They don't know. Donovan Mitchell doesn't know how to be a champion. James Harden doesn't know how to be a champion. LeBron does. And there are things that even at this stage of Donovan Mitchell's career, he's, you know, a top 15 player, but there are things that he still has to learn. There are areas where he still has to expand his game and get better. I think LeBron can help with that. The Golden State thing is interesting from a fun standpoint, I think, because him and Steph together is just basketball nirvana. We saw it with Team USA in the Olympics. Now, there's a bunch of other talent around that team with Team USA, but holy crap, was that fun. Those two guys together, and I think it appeals to LeBron. I mean, if you're talking about happiness, if you're talking about joy, those two dudes playing together, it's basketball joy for sure. Now, how does Draymond Green fit in the mix? Can they get Anthony Davis from the Washington Wizards? What other moves can they make around that roster? Because, from a roster construction standpoint, from a depth perspective, I don't think it would be on the same general level as the Cavs. The other variable that the Cavs have on their side compared to Golden State is that they're still if they don't love the roster construction, and they don't love how all the pieces potentially fit, they've got some tradable commodities, like guys that they would probably be more willing to trade if LeBron signs with them than they are willing to right now with not knowing what that would turn into. We've talked about Jared Allen. No, he's not a centerpiece of a deal type thing. But if LeBron looks at this roster and says, hey, the two big thing together, the spacing's kind of wonky, and I kind of want to be around the rim a little bit more. I want more lanes to attack the basket. If you're the Cavs and you say, all right, we're more open to the idea of trading one of those two bigs, well, you get something back of interesting enough value. And you don't have to shoot for the stars or the moon, because in this scenario, LeBron would be back. So you can just find workable complementary pieces for Jared Allen. And then you can see what you can get for the expiring contract of Max Strus. Maybe you could see what you could get for Jalen Tyson plus other things. Again, all of those things would be more of a possibility. And I think that's a different kind of setup than, the capped out or the sort of capped out Miami Heat. And I don't want to say asset poor Golden State Warriors, because that's probably taking it a little bit too far, but a team that just doesn't have the same kind of, potential roster flexibility in terms of trade maneuvering the way that the Cavs do. And like Wendy said on ESPN throughout the course of today, if the Cavs were motivated enough, they could go get Jaylen Brown. Could the Warriors? Could Miami? No. So, I'm not saying that's a deal breaker or anything along those lines, but, that shows the kind of ability that the Cavs have to potentially, with a LeBron James team, raise the ceiling a little bit more with some activity.
Yeah, and Golden State, even within their core, the Cavs are more flexible than Golden State. Like you were saying, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley trades. The Warriors don't have a version of those trades. Once you lock in your Steph, LeBron, Draymond, we'll throw AD in there. That's kind of it. That's your team now. And if somebody gets hurt, which tends to happen to people of their age and tends to happen to Anthony Davis, no matter how old he is, you're kind of screwed. Now you have old dudes carrying too much of a burden, right? I agree. Don't count out Miami. Maybe that's the summer theme of this podcast. Do not count out Miami. Heat culture has talent now again. So that's something to look out for. I personally would put the Warriors not a distant third, but comfortably third in the win the championship sweepstakes with these three teams, simply because they are in the Western Conference and because it is much harder to get through the Western Conference than it is to get to the Eastern Conference. Even though, yes, I know the Knicks just won the championship. The Celtics won it 2 years ago. There are just more championship caliber teams in the West, and San Antonio and OKC in particular, that's a mountain to climb. I put LeBron on the Heat. I put LeBron on the Cavs. I say puncher's chance against the Knicks. at the very least, or the Celtics, whatever. Like you're in the game. I put LeBron on your team, you're in the game. I don't know that I feel that way about the Warriors. I feel like I put LeBron on the Warriors. I say, ooh, I wouldn't want to see you. I wouldn't want to see you in the playoffs. You could probably beat anybody in one 7-game series, but can you keep doing it? Can I trust what Steph could be like 38 years old next year, 39 years old? Like, can I trust him not to wear down? He was wearing down in his prime. Can I trust LeBron, who, again, we've mentioned before, has not played 4 playoff rounds in a long time? Can we trust him to do what that roster would need him to do? Because LeBron's role on that team is different than LeBron's role on the Cavs and the Heat, right? Like, I mean, Draymond and Steph could help him out with ball handling and stuff like that. But like LeBron's going to do some heavy lifting on shot creation. So I think the Warriors are comfortably third in that pecking order. But the thing is, I don't know if LeBron thinks that because of the basketball nirvana element, because he has so much confidence in his body in the fight against Father Time. And because he's still, rightfully so, Steph Curry is like still, I looked at this the other day, like ages 34 to 36, Steph Curry is still like 27, 6, and 5 on insane efficiency. Like he's still that guy, a top tier engine of offense at his age right now. Last year he was incredible. He just didn't play a ton, played like 40 games. But that's the thing. Can we keep when we're playing faster than we ever have before, and you're playing in the West when the 82 game season does matter and your seeding will matter. Like, can you get through the slog and then still have the energy that you're gonna? I just don't know. Like, if we were starting the playoffs tomorrow and I put LeBron on that team, I'm having a different conversation in a month-long tournament, or 2-month-long tournament. I'm sure we can have a different conversation. I don't see it. I just don't know, again, how LeBron views these things, because I suspect that he looks at Steph Curry and Draymond Green and said, well, I've gone to battle with those guys at the highest level. Like, I've gone to battle against those guys. And they'll look at AD potentially and say, well, I've won a championship with this guy. Like, I know this works. Then he would look at the Cavs and say, Donovan Mitchell, I don't know. I don't know you. I haven't played with you. James Harden, your reputation precedes you. I don't know you. Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. I've been watching the Cavs games from home and scrolling my phone. They're not saying very nice things about you. Like, I don't know. I don't know how he looks at those things. And then Giannis and Bam are both stamped. It's another situation where, like, I know what I would do, but it's not my decision.
That's the other thing. It doesn't matter how Steph is perceived at this point in his career. It doesn't matter where we rank him at this stage of his career, or any of these talking heads rank him at this stage of his career. It is quite clear that LeBron has an affinity for Steph and a belief in Steph, a high level of belief in Steph. And maybe it's just a situation, when LeBron was looking at possibly leaving Cleveland a second time, the Lakers were always the logical destination. In part because LeBron grew up a Cowboys fan, he grew up a Yankees fan, and he just wanted to play for a historic franchise like the Lakers. That was something that was appealing to him, to always be a part of that, to always see how that was run, to always have that kind of fan base. He talked about it today in his farewell, wearing the purple and gold. That was meaningful to him. Didn't matter if it would have been meaningful to me or you or anybody else that was talking about that. For him, that was meaningful. It may be a situation where he looks at this and says, you know what, before my career is over, I just want to play with Steph again. Like, that caliber player. Like, the Dwayne Wade stuff was really, really fun. The Kyrie stuff was really, really fun. The Luka stuff was kind of sort of fun for as long as it lasted. Damn, would it be fun to play with Steph Curry? I don't know. I don't know if that's how he looks at it. I don't know if that's going to, drive his decision necessarily. But based on the last 10 years, even when they were playing against Steph in the NBA Finals over and over and over again, you could see just like how LeBron spoke about Steph. And you could see how much he appreciated his game. Like, there's a podcast that he is doing, Mind the Game, where, like, one of the titles is the best basketball ever, the most beautiful basketball that I've ever played. And he's talking about Steph at the Olympics. Maybe he wants that for a full season. That's something that I don't think we can discount, is just how much he believes in him and how much of an affinity he has for Steph and his game.
Guys, we've talked so much about LeBron James, and the reason being not only because he's a great player, it's because the Cavs need wing depth, right? Their wing depth is so hampered, particularly after what happened earlier today. Not only did the Cavs lose Dean Wade to the Philadelphia 76ers on a 4-year, $39 million deal, where Dean Wade is going to reunite with president of basketball operations for the Philadelphia 76ers, Mike Gansey, but they also lost Keon Ellis, who agreed to a 2-year, $18 million deal with the Brooklyn Nets. So that now leaves the Cavs' small forward depth basically at Max Strus, Jalen Tyson, and Naquan Tomlin, if you want to say Naquan Tomlin is a small forward. But we also understand that the Cavs simply don't have wing depth taller than 6'6" outside of Naquan Tomlin. The point guard room, you got a lot. James Harden, Tyrese Proctor, Dennis Schroeder, and Craig Porter Jr. Then you got the shooting guards, Donovan Mitchell, Sam Merrill, Malik Thomas. You can throw Max Strus in this category too if you want to. Then you got the power forwards, Evan Mobley, Naquan Tomlin, the centers, Jared Allen, Thomas Bryant. Where are you going for defensive help? Where are you going for wing help for this organization as currently constructed? That's why going and getting a piece like LeBron James and or Jaylen Brown would be significantly helpful for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. But I want to get into the two unrestricted free agents leaving the Cleveland Cavaliers as their own entities. First and foremost, Chris, you are the mayor of Dean Wade Island. We understand that Dean Wade was the best perimeter defender for this Cavs organization, but the understanding is now that the Cavs could not meet or would not meet the asking price for Dean Wade. What was your takeaway from what the Philadelphia 76ers were able to acquire Dean Wade for? And does that move mean for you that the Cleveland Cavaliers have something up their sleeve?
I think people are going to look at it like that, the latter portion of it, and that's fine. They can. Everything that I know about this situation is that the Cavs could have met that offer, and they were prepared to meet that offer, and they would look at that as a reasonable contract. When we were going through this offseason talking about the potential suitors for Dean Wade and what his hope was and what his camp's hope was that he was going to get in terms of a contract, I think I said don't be surprised if it ends up being a Sam Merrill situation. It's the same kind of conversation. It's the same kind of contract. Turned out to be that. And I think the Cavs would have been okay with that because they value Dean. They did value him, and they wanted him back. And there was hope throughout the course of the last 24, 48 hours that they were going to be able to get something done with Dean. And I think the Cavs believe on Monday night that they offered what they thought was a reasonable contract to Dean. But he wanted to test free agency, and he did. He did test free agency. He tested the market. And obviously, he likes the fit in Philadelphia. I think he likes the expected role that's going to be there. I think he likes the familiarity with the organization. Mike Gansey was the one who found him. He was an undrafted free agent, and Gansey was the one that found him and pushed for him to come to the organization. And Gansey was the one who, continued to vouch for him over and over and over again when it was time to give somebody a 10-day contract and then a standard contract and like all those other things. So I do think that those things appeal to Dean in this kind of situation. And I think he thinks it's something that is going to benefit him both financially and from a basketball standpoint. But now it means that the Cavs in the short term have to look elsewhere for a starter caliber wing or, a sometimes starter type wing, just based on the way that their roster sets up and based on, what's available in free agency at this point in time. It doesn't seem like there's much out there, especially given, the kind of salary cap restrictions that the Cavs have. They're kind of operating here, and there are some things that they have to figure out. What's the exact number of James Harden, those kinds of things. But, they're kind of operating from a salary cap perspective as if they're a second apron team. And I guess theoretically they could create the taxpayer mid-level. There's some movement that they could do with Max Strus and Dennis Schroeder and now that they didn't re-sign Dean Wade, to get to the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. It would be a little bit trickier. It would cause some losses. It would be a hit to the team's depth, but that is a possibility, I guess. I don't know that it's a likely outcome, but it's a possibility, I guess. But I think the Cavs, I don't want to say that they centered their entire offseason around Dean, but they were operating like they had an offer that was one that they thought Dean might have accepted. And now they have to look more at these free agents and more at potential trades to see if they can get somebody, the caliber of Dean or close to the caliber of Dean. Because I don't think this is a situation where, okay, we're just going to put all our eggs in the LeBron basket and we're going to do whatever it takes to bring LeBron here. I think it's conduct your business, try and build a team. And it's not like the Cavs don't have backup plans. It's not like the Cavs don't have like all these other scenarios that are laid out on a whiteboard. The LeBron scenario, if Dean Wade stays scenario, if James Harden takes this kind of contract scenario, if Dean Wade leaves scenario. They're so smart. They have all these different levers that they're going to pull or they can pull. Um, and they have all these different backup plans and stuff like that. The only thing that I'm saying is that, the market for these types of players was not robust to begin with. And now the Cavs, they have to go out in this not very robust market and see if they can replace, the reliability, the versatility, and the defense and the production and the investment that they once made in somebody like Dean. I just don't think it's going to be all that easy for them, especially in the financial situation that they're in.
Sounds like they need to salary dump somebody.
Well, they've been having trade conversations involving Dennis Schroeder and Max Strus, and it just so happens that one of the teams that has available cap space is the team that Max grew up rooting for, his hometown in Chicago, the Bulls.
I'd get the new Bulls president on speed dial then, because like these, I think part of the reason, I think the main reason Dean left after hearing Chris talk there is that Dean and Mike Gansey have a comfortability with each other where Dean Wade thinks that there might be even more opportunity in Philly than there would have been for him in Cleveland, or a little bit more certainty, or just even like trust, even if they're offering the same role and money, like Dean might just trust Mike Gansey more because he knows that Mike Gansey is a little bit more invested in Dean by virtue of the fact that Mike Gansey discovered him, so to speak, right? But my initial thought when I saw the news was that Dean saw a good offer and he figured, I don't know how long this offer is going to be out there for me, so I better go take it. And I wondered if, like, I don't know, if the Cavs have some money earmarked for LeBron and they told Dean, hey, can you give us X amount of time? And he's like, no, dude, I'm trying to get paid here. And that's good for you, Dean. Chase the bag. Chase the bag. Get the money while you can. Secure it. But the other Dean replacements are going to be thinking the same thing. If they can get something good, they're going to take it. They're not going to be waiting around for the Cavs. Hey, we're going to trust us. Max Strus to the Bulls. Max Strus loved the Bulls growing up. Did the Bulls love Max Strus? I don't know. I feel like if they did, this would be done by now. But it's like, if you're operating as a second apron team, well, you're probably not going to be able to replace Dean Wade's versatility. You're going to get somebody who you're going to sell us on being able to do that, who has some tools that you like, that's maybe an NBA skill. I don't know what it looks like, but like the guys, there's always somebody with the new apron rules. There's always a couple of guys that maybe end up getting minimums that you were surprised about getting minimums. So you have hope there. There's also some teams though that, like, Miami is a more attractive minimum spot now. If LeBron doesn't come here, wherever he does go will be a more attractive minimum spot than the Cavs. Like that's another thing that you have to consider. So to me, whether it's eggs in LeBron basket or eggs in the replacing Dean basket, like the Cavs need to free up some money to spend here, because the replacement that they seek is not available realistically to a team that is operating as a second-year team.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Jimmy, because not only did the Cavs lose Dean Wade, as I mentioned earlier, they also are going to be losing Keon Ellis. And while Keon Ellis did not have the impact that the Cavs would have wanted when he was seen as the steal of the trade or the hidden gem of the DeAndre Hunter trade back at the trade deadline, and then only played 29 regular season games for the Cleveland Cavaliers and carved out a minimal meaningful postseason role before hitting free agency. The biggest thing about this loss for the Cavs of Keon Ellis is the potential to also lose Dennis Schroeder via trade, via waive and stretch, via any possible way to add additional financial flexibility for the franchise. And that would mean that the Cavs basically gave up DeAndre Hunter for financial flexibility at that point. And we remember how much it took to get DeAndre Hunter and then how much the Cavs had to give up to get off of his contract as well. When the Cavs went and traded for DeAndre Hunter, acquiring him from the Atlanta Hawks, they gave up Karis LeVert, George Niang, 3 second-round picks, 2027, 2029, and 2031, and a pair of pick swaps. When they went and acquired Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis, they gave up DeAndre Hunter, obviously, and the 2027 second-round pick they owned from the Denver Nuggets. So that's 6 total picks that the Cavs had to give up, and losing 2 players that were revered and loved by the Cavs organization, and potentially losing Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis for minimal assets. What do you guys take away from the decisions that were made in entirety in this situation, but also understanding the financial restrictions that they're dealing with that could cause them to lose 2 players that they deemed worthy of trading for to go into a playoff run?
Well, the moves obviously didn't work. The idea of DeAndre Hunter was always more compelling than what it actually turned out on the basketball court. The other thing is, do they win the Toronto series without Dennis Schroeder's heroics? That one game? I don't know. Did he win you one game? Is that enough to consider that trade a success? One game in the playoffs that you absolutely needed? Maybe it is. Maybe it is enough to deem that a success. But with Keon, it was always going to be, they were trading for somebody who was set to become a free agent. It was always going to be a trial basis for him. Is this somebody that we do want to invest in? Let's take a look at him closer. Let's see what it looks like in our situation, in our system. Let's see what it looks like outside of Sacramento, and let's see if it works. And it didn't. Turned out Kenny Atkinson didn't want to play him in the playoffs, didn't believe that he could play him in the playoffs. Keon's a little slender, probably more slender than they thought once they saw him up close and personal. Probably more slender than they thought once they asked him to guard some of the wings. Like, wait a minute, this probably isn't going to work as we intended. But sometimes that happens. It's unfortunate. You would love a front office to bat 1,000. It's just not going to happen. And as much as the Cavs have made some smart moves over the last couple of years to position themselves where they are right now, a team that is coming off an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, they've also had some duds. Probably too many duds. But the beauty of the situation that they're in is that none of these mistakes that they have made have been that crippling. When it comes to the Keon thing, it's not like all of a sudden they have this $20 million contract on the roster that is just unmovable. When it comes to the DeAndre Hunter thing, it's not like they couldn't get out of that deal. They did. They tried to get 2 other pieces that helped their depth, gave them some insurance, gave them different kinds of skills that they didn't already have on the roster. Turned out they picked the wrong 2 guys, maybe the wrong 2 guys. Jury's still out on how people want to view the Dennis Schroeder thing because of the one game that he had in the playoffs. But the point is, like, none of these things have been preventative in other things that the Cavs can do to this point. I mean, even Dennis Schroeder, yeah, like if they do trade him, it's probably going to be more of a salary dump, and they're probably going to have to attach something to it. But it's not preventing them from making these other free agent moves that would be significant upgrades for them. So again, it's not justifying these bad trades, or it's not justifying these failed decisions that they've had. Um, they took a chance on certain things. They took a swing on DeAndre Hunter, and it just didn't work out. But they're not paying for it dearly the way that maybe in the past they have for bad decision making.
Yeah, I think both trades, we're grouping them together now because the original stand is DeAndre Hunter swing and miss, and that leads to this move. Both trades defensible in a vacuum. Understood the rationale for both of them. Neither of them worked out. That's not good. This was like the DeAndre Hunter trade in particular was billed as like, hey, we found our missing wing guy. This is your two-way wing. Look at, wait till we plug this guy in with the core four, which they barely ever did. That's the big miss. And for you to, and that's not like it's George Niang and Karis LeVert and second round picks and swaps of swaps. Like,
They didn't trade Evan Mobley for him.
it's more than you would like to give up for a player that you then had to get off of as a bad contract 12 months later. No doubt. Bad piece of business. And then Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis, for the results of that trade to be Keon Ellis, you let him walk in free agency, and now you're trying to salary dump Dennis Schroeder. That's not great business either. Though again, if Dennis Schroeder as kind of like a salary matching piece of that trade, the fact that he did help you win a playoff game is not nothing. And the other part of that trade is that with DeAndre Hunter is like the Cavs opened up more of a possibility to flexibility with those trades. If the Cavs just held on to DeAndre Hunter the entire season and he got hurt like he did, or he continued to underperform as he was before the trade, like they would be in at least as bad, if not a worse salary cap situation, and he would be harder to move off of, right? Getting Keon on an expiring deal is a risk and is hard to integrate in the short period that they had, but it also just could free up the money as is now, and the Cavs might have a little bit more flexibility to make a potential LeBron move or something like that. So again, this is not good. The Cavs have, but this is not good. It's a bad a bad allocation of resources, but this is also like the kind of stuff that happens when you are as close to the second apron as this team was. Well, they were literally in the second apron and are going to be. Like your avenues to finding missing pieces in your roster are harder to navigate, and there are fewer of them, right? So like, if you again, this is the thing that a pattern I noticed with like the super engaged members of this fan base. Like, you get super worked up about like a DeAndre Hunter trade or a Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder trade. It's like, no, that's not the issue here. The issue here is that you thought that the rest of the roster was ready to be in the second apron, and it wasn't. That's really where the error is. That's really where the fix is. It manifested itself in these smaller swings that didn't work out, and they really didn't work out. The DeAndre Hunter thing really didn't work out. If you end up salary dumping Dennis Schroeder, then that trade really didn't work out. But again, that's not the issue. The issue is that you were in the second apron with a roster that you thought was further ahead than it actually was, which narrowed your path to improvement.
I think this is a harsh reality that the Cavs are currently in. And again, while we continuously say that the Cavs need to go make moves in the offseason, that is now upon us. Because, again, I keep saying it, Cavs are currently constructed are not winning a championship. So to get to where they want to go, to kind of validate all of the maneuvering and the moves that they've made throughout this timeline, they need to go and get players that help them get where they want to go.
The Cavs never expected to keep Keon Ellis. Never. As things were playing themselves out, as his role was diminishing, as they were entering this free agency market, they were never expecting to keep Keon Ellis. They knew that there were going to be other interested teams. Look, around the time that they traded for him, there were like 8 to 10 teams interested in Keon. Like, hey, what's it look like outside Sacramento for this guy? Hey, look, the idea of him shooting about 40% from three and these steals and these deflections and this peskiness on defense, that's kind of appealing. So there were like 8 to 10 teams that were interested in him around the time of the trade deadline. And because of that, the Cavs knew that there were going to be people that were interested in him this offseason that were going to say the same thing. Hey, like, let's see what it looks like for him if he's not buried on a depth chart behind Dean Wade and Sam Merrill and Max Strus and Jalen Tyson and let's see what it looks like if we give this guy some real playing time and some real opportunity and put him in a position that kind of maximizes the things that he may do best. So the Cavs knew that they were going to be interested. They can't justify giving Keon Ellis $9 million a year. They can't. They couldn't play him in the playoffs. They didn't believe that they could play him in the playoffs. You can't allocate those kinds of resources and that kind of salary to somebody that you basically or your coach basically determined that he was unplayable in the playoffs. So I think the Cavs had a general idea of what the market was going to be for him and how many teams were going to be interested and what the general salary range was going to be for him. And they just accepted the fact that he was going to walk. And I don't think that they're losing sleep over it. And like I said, I don't think they came into this offseason with any delusions that they were going to be able to bring him back. They prioritized Dean. Of those two guys, they prioritized Dean. They didn't get either one of them. And, that's something that I would say is frustrating for the organization and maybe a little bit painful because of the role that Dean had and because of what he represented for this team, the only big wing that they actually have on the roster. And now they have to find a way to replace him in this market. So it was a painful loss for them. Dean was specifically. The Keon one, they just accepted. I think there was hope around Dean from the organization. I was getting the sense that even though they were bracing for the possibility of him leaving, they were also hopeful that the kind of offer that they believed they made him on Monday was going to be one that was enticing enough for him to stay and compelling enough in other areas for him to stay. So that one I do sense is painful for the team. But Keon was one that they were expecting to lose from the very beginning, and they didn't prioritize him in any sort of way.
Which again, that's a misevaluation.
It is?
We can criticize the front office for that. They thought that Keon Ellis, again, they weren't the only ones who thought this. There was a sense at the trade deadline that, look at the Kings letting Keon Ellis out of their sights. This guy shoots 40% from three. He's feisty on defense, and he can't play. Why? Because Malik Monk is over there. Oh, the Kings. Oh, maybe the Kings knew something. Maybe the Kings had a better look at him up close, and they recognized that, yeah, he's a little skinny. And he's if he was 3-4 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier, he'd be awesome. But he's not. So that's why he's not playing. Best of luck to him, though.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for him to get an opportunity. They're looking for as many guys as possible that can actually play real minutes.
Now we'll have to wait and see what other free agent moves the Cavs make.
Man, the list is bad. Have you seen some of these names? Sheesh.
Trading the Kuminga train.
Basically just one roster spot remaining as currently constructed. As we understand, the Cavs historically have left that 15th roster spot available for midseason acquisitions, for buyout markets, all these other things. But the Cavs already have 13 roster spots filled as currently constructed as we record this podcast on July 1st at 12:34 a.m. But that can change at the drop of a hat. That can change based on Dennis Schroeder being traded or waived and stretched. All these other things that are possible for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. We will keep you updated as things go on throughout the summer. Stay patient, stay ready, stay vigilant, because things are happening. And they're happening fast, but we'll keep you as close to the action as we can. With all that being said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs insider and interact with Chris, me, and Jimmy by subscribing to Subtext. Don't want to wait for our breakdowns to hear what's going on behind the scenes? This is how you get insider information directly to your phone from me, Chris, and Jimmy. The only way to do so is signing up for a 14-day free trial or visiting cleveland.com/Cavs and clicking on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word STOP. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who signed up stick around, because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me, Chris, and Jimmy. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.